Hey, Hala, how you doing?
Great. How about you guys?
Excellent, excellent. Good to see you.
You as well, Alex. It's been a while.
It's been so long, and I know you haven't seen Jeff in a while either.
No, that's true. I probably about the last time I saw both of you were similar times.
Yeah, probably so. I'm just so jealous you guys got to work like together for a long time. That's on my list, Taylor. Just one way or another, I'm going to try to work that
Okay,
out.
I
We
got
worked
you. Well,
together for so good, so much that she had to leave. I'm just saying, I'm taking it personally, so I think there's a correlation, but we'll get into that.
well, I did recruit Alex. I got to say so.
Yeah, if you call that recruiting, it's like all of a sudden I didn't feel like I had an option. But it was in a good way. It was a good way. It was a heck of a. I mean, I always tell people it's one of the better sales. It was great because it came down to values and purpose and all that. So yeah, so it was very effective. And then all of a sudden you're like, I feel like I can't say no. That's how it should work,
That's
right?
the idea. That's
Why
good.
she's the best.
Well, Hayla, good to see you. Whenever Jeff and I get to reunite with friends on this, we always realize how much we miss the pre-pandemic world, and hopefully coming soon a world where we could see people, in person. And so, as we start our conversation here, let's talk. 2020 has been just an insane year in every dimension possible. And even if there was not everything going on in the world, your year in itself is quite a bit to talk about. So, actually, take us back though to a year ago to January 2020, and what were you projecting forward of Hala's 2020? What was that going to be about as you sat there a year ago?
Well, I can certainly tell you without a doubt that I did not picture myself running the Woodruff Arts Center, and nor did I picture myself, not wearing high heels for, I don't, let's call it 9 months. Really, yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, nobody could have predicted, but it has been definitely an unusual year for me personally and career wise on top of everything else. So,
We had the chance. I was telling Alex, I had the chance to take my leadership to the chamber. I don't know, a year or two ago, and you
yep.
were gracious, Ayla, to spend an hour and instill some leadership principles to my team, and I so appreciate that. One of the things that struck me about that was how thoughtful you are about what you spend time on, what you get involved in. My sense is like when you decide to commit, you're in and you're going to give it your all, and so therefore you have to be very careful about the things that you jump into. Um, and I so I imagine there's a passion for what you're doing now with Woodruff that you just couldn't say no.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's not only the incredible world class art that goes on at that place, and what that institution means to Atlanta, but it was also, you can't say no to the people. So when someone like Doug Hertz asks you to, be a part of working, on Woodruff during the pandemic, you really can't say no. And then the other thing I'd say about the Woodruff Arts Center, everybody knows again that it's world-class art. Everybody knows that it's a treasure for Atlanta. We always talked about it when we were doing economic development, what it meant to have that type of art center here in America, here in Atlanta, and for attracting companies, especially international companies, attracting talent. But a couple of things that I'm just not sure everybody really understands about the Art Center, and here they are. One is about the enormous amount of work that the three art partners do in arts education and arts access and art equity. I mean, if you look at the dollars spent, we are the largest arts educator in Georgia, and it's just pretty incredible. And we need to keep doing that service. So whenever I'm talking about asking for funds right now, especially during COVID, I mention the art, I mention education, access, and equity, and then the third piece is social justice. The Alliance for has just put out, excuse me, the High actually has just put out a report of looking at their demographic shifts of patrons and artists that they've shown, exhibits, etc., over the last 5 years. And it's really pretty incredible. We are among their the most diverse patron audience of any place, a museum in America. And I can go on and on about the Alliance and the Symphony, but I'll take a breath now. But there's lots to be proud of there.
Well, and Hala, before you even were at Woodruff, just your work at the chamber. I mean, you have a true passion for the arts, and so I think which is just beautiful connection there. But it's interesting though when you talk about getting to Jeff's point in terms of how you move forward and your leadership moments. One thing I've noticed working with you is that you definitely, like many good CEOs, it's focused on execution and efficiently execute. But I think you bring something into it in terms of this also persistent intellectual curiosity, right? If you need, I know if you get bored of something, it's not good, but it kind of pushes the organization forward. So how do you kind of whether it's at Woodruff or the chamber or even your transition from corporate to nonprofit that you've done, when you start getting quote unquote bored in a role, what do you do to bring that intellectual curiosity back?
Well, the good news is I've had the opportunity to move around a little bit in my career. And I think part of that does get to the fact of, if you kind of conquer something, if there's some things that needed to be transformed or fixed or worked on, and you're just on fire during that period, because it's you're working with the incredible people, you're doing things that you can actually see the movement. So once that is over, or once you've done it sort of at the same institution for a number of years, there is a tendency to have less, I guess, fire in the belly. And that's one of the reasons that it's such a pleasure and a gift to me personally to get to have done several different things in Atlanta. And the Woodruff is no different. I mean, I've been involved there, as a volunteer and a patron, patron forever, and, volunteer since probably 2011. But just being able to be, that close to the arts and see all the things that they've done. And there has not been one boring second since I've been in this role. And I don't think there's going to be for a while, because there's, COVID has been a very, very tough hit, as you would imagine.
I'm super curious. You are one of the few people that I know that have led corporate, civic, and nonprofit at really the highest levels. Most people check one of those boxes, maybe two. And so as you think about your journey thus far, does the order of how those happened for you, did that make an impact on the leader you are? Would you switch that up? Would you tell your younger self, start here first? Or how do you think about that?
No, I think the order was just fine, because here's the thing. I don't think I would have had the opportunity to have worked at the Metro Atlanta Chamber and or Woodruff if I hadn't had the corporate experience. And I will tell you this, I think corporate is easier any day because, ESG is a thing now, and it's a good thing. And it was always there to a certain degree. But in the corporate world, you make your numbers or you don't, where you stand every day, and it's just a straighter shot. But I don't think I would have had the opportunities that I had in the civic world and nonprofit had I not had some of that good old fashioned operations background and strategy background and that kind of thing. So I think the order took care of itself.
Yeah, and Hala, talked a bit about this too. I mean, and I know it could be disorienting going from corporate to a nonprofit or civic, because that not having that ticker symbol to follow, each quarter, or even the analyst bidding you up each quarter, whatever it is, that it becomes pretty linear in corporate. A lot of complexity, but it becomes the one number at the end of the day. But it seems like with nonprofit and civic, at least the sense I got, and definitely something to learn from you, is it could get really easy to start measuring tactics, but you always have to keep a bigger purpose and vision in mind. So how do you think about that, and how do you keep that going for whether it was the chamber or Woodruff or Susan B. Komen?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Alex. To me, sort of the goals and objectives are more difficult to measure. I mean, the easy part in a civic and especially a nonprofit is you know what your mission is. And a lot of people join the organization for the mission. I mean, they are excellent workers and have lots of different skill sets, but they join for that mission and it's important to them. So that part is easy. But when you're trying to set goals in a nonprofit, you certainly have your financial goals because you've got to make enough money to get the job done and you've got to put the dollars that are given to you to work. But when you're, I always use Komen as an example. I mean, the biggest measurement there is, did you save any lives with the scientific research you funded, with the access things that you gave? And there's no way to put a goal to that, but it's what at the end of the day you were working on. And even with the arts, you're hoping to create empathy, you're hoping to create a connection to the community, you're hoping to create a lot of things that are somewhat intangible, but we all know, I mean, art has been around since time immemorial. So we know that it's important and it's important to mankind. But these things are hard to measure, and they're just you can, if you're not careful, you're right, you just kind of start counting the things that you did versus counting the impact, which is harder to do in nonprofit.
And I'm sorry, Alex, I'm going to derail us just for a moment because I got to ask this question. One of the things I'm really focused on is certainly working with nonprofits, but from a for-profit perspective, really bringing to life an authentic purpose, not just something that's, part of a phrase on the wall, but like really, that's a hard thing to do. It's inherent in nonprofits, right? Like you said, you're saving lives, you're doing these things. I'm curious, we talked about the order, but let's say you were to do another for-profit. Now that you've had so much nonprofit and civic experience, do you think it's possible to get close to that with a for-profit? And maybe how would you go about that?
I actually think it is. And I will tell you the one that was easiest for me, and this was being president of Church's Chicken. And that was frankly before everybody and their brother and sister started talking about purpose. Nobody was going around saying purpose driven then. You did have missions and visions and all that, but it just, this was a number of years ago. But the thing that was sort of there were two rallying cries for us at churches that we got really emotional about and focused on. We were at the time, what was referred to in a lot of inner city markets, underserved markets in terms of just having fast food available. And the thing about churches specifically is we had fresh fried chicken, never frozen. We had vegetables. Yes, we tried to fry even the coleslaw sometimes, but we had a real meal for people, a meal they could share, so that it was the chicken and the sides and all that for a very, very reasonable price. And the thing is, we felt like that was a service to the community. And then the other piece is the jobs that were created in those communities, and the kind of the piece de resistance is the franchisees. There's one guy, I always use him as an example. He started out in 1968 as a fry cook. He is a multi-millionaire person today. And he he was in Florida. He became a franchisee. He owns, I don't even know how many restaurants now, employs, I don't know how many people in his family. So the thing is, because of the group we served, we were about a third African American, a third Hispanic, and a third blue collar white. And we got excited about it. We felt like we were doing something that was important. And the franchise model is just a good way for people who want to be in business for themselves and create some wealth on their own. So, I felt really good about what we did there.
It's interesting, Hala. Of course, you're in Atlanta. We're such a home for franchise business model, and of course, you ran an Arby's as well, and of course, now with Focus and Inspire and what we have, not to mention Chick-fil-A and all that, so much going on. But one learning I've had over the last few years getting closer to these businesses is that, particularly for the franchise models, it's this interesting dichotomy of you're running this corporate business, but you're also enabling small businesses as well too, empowering the economy that way. How do you, from when you're leading those organizations, how do you balance that, the needs for the corporations with the needs of these thousands and thousands of small businesses, around the country, around the world?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right about that, Alex. And that's one of the reasons it's such a popular way to create wealth in America,
Yeah.
or really all around the world. It's the balance is tricky because you have two people to serve. One, the customer. And I think that's where, in a sense, your corporate strategy and your marketing and all that obviously comes in. And then you have the franchisee, because if you're not making it easy for the franchisee to get done what they need to do to serve your ultimate customer, then you're not going to make it. And sometimes those things can feel like there's a tension there. And the best franchisors, and again, we've got the cream of the crop here in Atlanta. You mentioned Chick-fil-A, you mentioned Inspire, Focus, all these people there. It's really pretty phenomenal. But you got to be good at both. And sometimes those things feel at cross purposes. But I mean, it's a beautiful model because you got the corporate and then you're just small business, and some of those small businesses become very large businesses over time.
Right. Yeah, and so Hala, kind of continuing, kind of on the business side as well too, and kind of getting it to the day, and really maybe starting to talk about 2021. And this is something you've started, prior to now, but you are very active with boards.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what does it really mean? Because I think there is a little bit of a mystique for many people, because obviously very few people get to be on, particularly for-profit boards. So what does that really mean, and why is this and what role what value do you think you bring to these boards of directors that you're joining?
Well, I think each individual, and definitely in my case, I think I bring a little bit of a different something to each of the boards. But the two publicly traded boards I'm on right now are both New York Stock Exchange, S&P 500. One is Lamb Weston, which you may not have heard of, but you've definitely had Lamb Weston French fries, because we are the largest frozen potato manufacturer in the country and second in the world. So, I was asked to be on that board, I believe, because of my background in food service, at Arby's and churches, et cetera. And so I feel like what I bring to that board is able to see the operator's view, or the corporate view, and to that point, the franchise view. So that has been a great board. It's based in Idaho, as you might expect, with a potato company, and just really a great group of people, and have enjoyed it so much. I'm on the nominating and governance committee there, and the comp committee. And then the other one that I'm currently serving on is FleetCor Technologies right here in Atlanta. And it's a payments company, started out as fuel cards, but does much more than that now. And, I'm not a technology expert nor a payments expert, but again, I think they were looking for people who have run companies and understand it's getting a little better and broader now, but for a while there, it was, you pretty much needed that CEO title to have, to be asked to be on these boards. And then in this case, FleetCor is an important company in town. And I think having the Atlanta connection was important. And that's another great board. I mean, the growth there is phenomenal. A lot of M&A opportunities on both those companies. So it's just a great way to keep your finger on the pulse of business. I mean, it's especially important and exciting for me that even though I'm running a nonprofit, I'm getting the opportunity to have my finger on the pulse of business. And then my private for-profit board is a Carlisle portfolio company, and it is around packaging, paper, plastic, things for food service. And again, I think a lot of my background being an operator who uses those used to use those products is kind of what got me on that board. And another great board. I mean, I've been on two other publicly traded boards in the past, one that was sold and another one I had to drop off actually when I went to Arby's. But it's really, it's exciting, and it's a lot of responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. And going back to, you being sort of purposeful about the things that you get involved in, I am curious because I have to imagine, based on the things you've accomplished, you're in demand to join boards and probably asked frequently. What is your sort of criteria when you're thinking, all right, when I'm really going to weigh the pros and cons of this one, what puts it over the edge?
Well, you do want to feel like you can contribute, for starters. And, just frankly, I mean, I felt very comfortable going on the Lamb Weston board because I had been at Lamb West, I had been a customer of Lamb Weston. I knew their product. I knew their reputation. I knew their ability to be innovative. So the first thing you want to know is that you're not just going to kind of be there. I can say on the Fleet Corps board, I think every other board member on that board, knows more than I do about payments. So I try just to come at it from the standpoint of, managing large companies. And I also have to say, on every board I've ever been on, I've tried to be a champion for more women on the boards, more people of color on the boards. And now I'm, probably the first one to bring up some of the ESG types of information. I mean, everybody's working on it. Everybody needs to, but there are ways to do that really enhance the value of the company. So that's a kind of an interesting place to play right now.
Just have
So-
one more
go
final
ahead,
question
go
on
ahead, Jeff.
board. Sorry. We have, because this podcast we do isn't like topic specific. There's a lot of people that I know in town that run nonprofits, and so therefore they manage a board, and they listen in, and I know they'll listen to this one. So having been on multiple boards, having, built and run boards, are there one or two things that you think make a board effective versus maybe some that haven't been as effective?
From a nonprofit standpoint, one of the boards that I am very privileged to serve on is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And that may be the best run board, probably is the best, certainly the best run nonprofit board I've ever served on. It's amazing. Of course, it needs to be, because children's health is, is what they do. But it's run, to me, very similar to a publicly traded company board. You feel the responsibility. You know that the management team is phenomenal, incredible, and they must be, because the mission there is so big. So that's the one I would shout out. If anybody's trying to learn from a well-run board, I would look at Donna Highland, the CEO there. Tommy Holder's the chair right now. I think it's been a very well-run board for years and years, and it's certainly my privilege to serve on that.
And I would imagine this year, I could just imagine with COVID hitting I mean, it's always a massive responsibility, but my guess is your activity at that board was pretty significant this year.
Yeah. And, even though, thank goodness, children aren't
Right.
being hit as hard, it doesn't mean that shortages and fatigue and dealing with the public in a very different way and all the things that you can imagine. And there, now the vaccines coming out and who gets it when, there's a lot of complexity that's added, and the team has just been phenomenal. I mean, it has been a masterful thing to watch. I mean, it really, really has.
So speaking of that, we start transitioning as we are now here in 2021, Hala, and we've asked a lot of people how they dealt with COVID when it hit. So let's maybe pivot that a little bit as we start to wrap up here. But we're 2021, brand new year. What's kind of top of mind for you going into the year, and what are you looking most forward to once we get all these vaccines done? What do you want to get back to doing?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, first of all, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, as they say,
Yeah.
but I think we all have to, listen, am I going to celebrate on New Year's Eve this year? Yes. Don't get me wrong. But I think we have to realize that maybe even the first 6 months of 2021 is going to be pretty tough too.
Right.
We just cannot take our foot off trying to be careful, wearing our mask and socially distancing and everything while we're getting the vaccine. But after that, I mean, look, I'm going to be dying to go see and experience the art that I'm supposedly, getting to be a part of. So it's, I watched the virtual, I went to the drive-in that the Alliance did. I've been to the High because the High is open, time tickets, very safe. You wear your mask. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's going to be like, wow, I'm going to go get to see the art that I'm having the privilege of working with these days.
I think it's going to be so much pent up demand for that. I know incredible things happen this year with people turning things virtual, whether it's conferences,
Absolutely.
arts, and all that. Sports. It's amazing what's done. I think there's permanent changes to some delivery platforms, but I think we're at a point now where people want to be in that theater. They want to walk around and just get all their senses, walking around the art center. So I'm sure there'll be going to be some pent up demand at some point.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And the players, the actors, the musicians,
Yes.
they want to play in front of an audience. They want to be there. So it's going to be, the arts is going to be one of the really interesting kind of rebounds, if you will.
And I'm sorry, Jeff. Do you have anything as we wrap up here, Jeff?
I can't wait to come back, by the way, as well. There's been so many things. We've got two of our kids have some health concerns, so we're being like super cautious, but I love what you guys have been doing. And as I think about businesses and pivoting during this crisis, what you all have done with all the Woodruff properties has been really remarkable. And hopefully from that, you'll be able to reach more and more people, which I know helps with equity and inclusion, right? Is now with virtual experiences.
Absolutely. And that is, there are some silver linings coming out of this. And I think for both the Alliance and the ASO, they have reached foreign countries. They've reached something like 45 states. So we have been able to spread the message, so to speak. And I think some of that will continue. So you're absolutely right. This could be good for access overall.
Well, Hala, as we go to wrap up here, the one thing we could have done, and I know it would have been an easy conversation, we could have spent 30 minutes just talking about your grandbaby and
yes, we could. Yes,
and celebrating.
And I could have shown some photographs, but alas, you didn't ask me.
See, we could have. Well, that'll have to be a special. We'll have to have a special on that too.
That's right. Well, she's that special, but I'll let you guys off the hook on that one.
Well, Hala, thanks. It's so good. First of all, so good seeing you. So good seeing you. Can't wait till we can do this in person. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for joining us here on the Jeff and Alex podcast.
Thanks to both of you guys. I love what you're doing. So take care.
Bye.